Hey everybody, Steve Kreiner, the Dog Soldier here. Welcome to the Plain and Simple podcast. I might be a little offbeat right now because tonight is going to be the most awesome podcast ever. And I say that a lot, and that's because I mean it, because every time I get a chance to talk to you guys, every time I get a chance for you guys to see me in the raw form, every time I get a chance to have a good conversation with somebody, it's the best podcast ever. First of all, I want to get through all the bull crap real quick. I don't even know the date. So it's February 15th. And it's February 15th, 2018. And this is episode 19 of the Plain and Simple Predator Hunting Podcast. Or now, the Plain and Simple Hunting Podcast. It's brought to you by tonight, Codwell Shooting Supplies and Bog Pod Tripods. If you guys watch us on the show, if you guys watch the YouTube channel and all our hunts, you'll see Bog Pods everywhere. They are plumb epic. We like to see you guys support our sponsors, but most of all, we like to see you guys kill coyotes. And man, I'm just telling you right now, if you use a good shooting rest and you use a good shooting system to sight in your stuff, yeah. Okay, so I've never been nervous before in my whole life. It's been a rough week on the United States, and I really didn't plan this podcast to happen this week, but I received a package in the mail. An acquaintance of mine from online had visited with me a while ago and said he appreciated how I ended the shows and supported our veterans and how I supported the men and women in blue and our paramedics. And so anyway, he told me just a short, quick few details, about a movie, and said he wanted to send me some stuff. And I'm all the time having veterans and policemen and they send me stuff because I love it, man. It's just awesome how the people want to give back, and they're the true heroes. So anyway, I'm going to show you guys something real quick, and this is a patch from the Port Authority Police Department, and on the back of it says, "Steve, thanks for being a great American. God bless. Will Jemeno, Port Authority Police Department, badge number 1117. So tonight, like I said, I didn't plan on this podcast happening this week, but I received the package and I come back from Texas, and it was just an epic thing to do, I thought. And then stuff happened this week in the United States, so none of us ever really planned for it. So anyway, I'm trying to get things rolling here. Sorry guys, This means a lot to me. It's close to me. So on September 11th, 2001, at 8:45 a.m., it was on a Tuesday morning. I believe a 767 hit the first tower, and there was a chain reaction in response to a second plane hitting the towers, and also the Pentagon that day. Almost 3,000 people died on September 11th, 9/11. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't realize at the time, and I'm embarrassed, but there was two Port Authority police officers and their unit that had went into the danger zone to help people, and two, I believe, out of this unit survived, and one of them was Will Jemeno and John McLaughlin, Sergeant John McLaughlin. They were buried for 13 hours. So with that being said, I want everybody to give a warm welcome. You guys listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, you guys watching live on YouTube tonight, and hopefully you guys that listen to this podcast 20 years from now, because I bet your ass Steve Kreiner ain't going nowhere. Let's give a warm welcome for Will Jemeno. Will, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, man? I really appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, it's I tell you what, I'm usually I'm usually not a loss for words, brother. I'll just tell you that I'm about the best bullshitter in the country. Um, but there's two things I don't BS about, and it's my love for this great country and the respect I have for heroes all across the country, in all aspects, in all divisions of utility. Um, this is you don't understand how big of an honor this is and how close this is to me. I appreciate you being on tonight, and most of all, I appreciate the kind words, the badge you sent me, and I got my pen. I got my pen right back here on my flag. So anyway, brother, how are you been doing?
I'm doing good. I always tell people that I'm walking and talking, and I'm doing good. I mean, been through a lot. I've seen how our country's been through a lot, but and I know you mentioned, of course, what happened yesterday, unfortunately, and it's ironic because I got a call yesterday from a good hunting buddy of mine, Frank Pazos, who I was actually with hunting in Florida for coyotes a couple weeks ago, and he called me and said, "Hey, turn the news on," and my son's there. His stepson was at the school in Florida where the shooting happened. And long story short, thank goodness his son was okay. His actually wife pulled up on the corner there where a lot of people have seen the TV coverage, and unfortunately there were two bodies in the corner, and she was witness to that. And it's another tragic event that we have here in our nation. But I always fall back on one thing, and that is tough times don't last. Tough people do, and we're Americans, and we're tough. We're resilient. I go back to September 11th. The Port Authority Police of New York and New Jersey, we're a bi-state agency. We take care of all the transportation, the bridges, the tunnels, the airports, the World Trade Center. That's ours. And on 9/11, we lost 37 cops, the most lost in law enforcement history in one day, followed by our brothers and sisters at the NYPD with 23, and our brothers at the fire department, the FDNY, with 343, and countless civilians. And evil thought that we were going to come to our knees, and we came together, and we overcame. And every time there's a tragedy, the one thing I know is that Americans are tough. Even though a lot of you out there probably feel like I do, that this new generation sometimes isn't as tough, but we do come together, and we will not falter, we will not fail those that gave us the freedom. And one of the things that I tell everyone is that the American flag is not made out of cloth; it is made out of the blood of patriots. And as Americans, we have to forge forward no matter how bad situations get, and understand that there's always going to be evil. On September 11th, I was just a rookie cop, assigned to the bus terminal, which is in Midtown Manhattan. And, the first plane came over. Uh, and actually, I saw the shadow of the plane come over 42nd 8th Avenue. I didn't know what it was. I saw one of our sergeants standing outside of the awning that's there, and he actually saw the plane come over, and our radios crackled, and they asked us to come, all the cops to come back to the desk, which is rare because in the morning we call it the rush. Everybody from New Jersey, Connecticut, upstate New York's coming into the bus terminal,
Yeah,
the Port Authority bus terminal, which is the largest in the country. So you got thousands of people, and for them to pull all the cops off their posts, something really bad must have happened. And unfortunately, as we all know, what happened that day changed us forever. It really did. But also brought us closer together. It showed that evil is not going to win. We're not going to let it win, and we have to instill in our youth today that freedom is not free. That's why when I reached out to you to tell you, hey man, when you finish the show and you thank the vets, the cops, the firefighters, the EMTs, you know, uh, it's important that we pass that on, and that young people understand that that's a big part of our nation. And I
yeah,
instill also when I go speak, teachers, your doctors, the people that educate you, the people that take care of you, and your parents. And one thing I tell kids is, we don't all come from a good home. I'm blessed. I have two great parents, but I've seen people have come from horrific backgrounds, but they don't use that as a crutch.
yeah,
And that's what makes us tough. Is yeah, okay, maybe you were adopted, maybe you were abused, things that happen, but you don't let that dictate your life in the future. You want to be a
Yeah.
positive person. You want to be able to experience things. And one of the things, my background is I was born in Colombia, South America. I came here when I was 2,
Yeah.
and settled in Hackensack. And my mother and father, they came to this country with a dream. They came legally, and they worked hard. And one of the things my parents instilled in me is, we're a melting pot here.
Yeah.
But Will, you're going to learn to speak English. We're going to fly the American flag, and you're going to be an asset to this country. My mom
Absolutely.
always still says, I cannot, I still can't believe that my son that I brought here from Colombia, is one of the 2 people that survived underneath the World Trade Center. One of only 2 to survive from underneath it, which is mind boggling,
Yeah.
you know? And I always told my mom, I love this country. I mean, I served in the Navy. When it was time to go to college, my dad offered me a car to go to college. I said, Dad, I just love this country so much. I want to serve. So I joined the U.S. Navy. I served upon the USS Tripoli. I got off about 3 months before it got hit by the mines. The only ship that got hit during the first Persian Gulf War, the USS Tripoli, got hit by a mine. But I served, and
Yeah.
I felt that I needed to give to this country because it's given so much to my family. And I tell everybody, you know what? If you come to this nation, you have to be willing to work hard, participate, make this a better place. If not, there's a lot of other places in the world you can go to, but you will never find the freedoms that we have in this country anywhere else. And that comes because of the blood spilled by so many Americans. And so when you close at the end of every show thanking them, that allows me to feel that, Steve, he gets it. He's sharing it with people because you know what? That's why I can go coyote hunt. That's why I can go bow hunting. That's why I can go fishing, trapping.
Yeah.
And those freedoms are precious. I tell everyone they're just so, so precious. So, I always appreciate what you say in the show and how you're not ashamed. You're not ashamed to show your love for this country, which sometimes I don't understand. Sometimes being too patriotic, and I'll say, you got the liberals who just they don't. Oh, you're too patriotic. What do you mean?
Yeah.
And these are people who have not, experienced leaving this country to see how other people in the world, live and how they don't have freedoms. And I always refer to Tony Blair, the old British Prime Minister, who says, the United States, any country that you have more people trying to get into than get out, they're doing something right. And
Yeah.
for all the criticism they have about this nation or our president, we still got people wanting to come in here.
Yep.
Why? Because they know what we have here is precious.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe you wouldn't believe the amount of emails I get. I close the show, and for some of you guys listening on iTunes and SoundCloud and watching live, if you haven't watched the show, I always say thank a veteran or our servicemen and women. Make sure that they know we appreciate them, because without you guys, none of this is possible. And you wouldn't believe how many emails I get from people. Man, I've got emails that's, man, you're all about you. You're a tough guy. You got Patriot tattooed on your arm, and you got the flag, and you got Fearless, and you got all this bullshit going on. And yada, yada, yada. That's stolen valor, blah, blah, blah. You would not believe how many jackoffs this country's got in it. They just don't get it.
Yeah, but they're the first ones, and I always say this: those people that sit there behind their keyboards are the first people to run the other way.
Yeah,
And when someone shows their patriotism proudly, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
absolutely.
Just as people are proud to be PETA people, to be, anti-gun, well, guess what? We're proud of our Second Amendment. We're
Yep.
proud of our freedom. We're proud of the American flag. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you. I fly a flag in front of my house, and when I come down my block, I tell my wife all the time, I love that when I turn down my block, I got my flag on a big flagpole. I can see it coming down
Yeah.
the block. I love those colors because I know what this country, and I've suffered. I mean, for those that haven't or don't know my story and my team's story, watch the movie World Trade Center by Oliver Stone. It pretty much tells you what happened to us. We responded. I had a great sergeant, Sergeant John McLaughlin, who just was someone I admired. I'd been to several gun calls with him, somebody who I consider a good boss. And when he asked for volunteers, myself, my classmates that I just graduated the academy with, Dominic Pizzulo and Antonio Rodriguez volunteered. We went in, hooked up with another officer, Christopher Amoroso, who had already saved 4 people and got hit over his left eye by concrete, but still kept wanting to save people and hooked up with us. And then, we were working our way from Tower 2 to Tower 1 when everything collapsed on us. So we were in the epicenter. We lost, Christopher and Antonio on the initial collapse, and I found myself buried with Dominic and my sergeant. We were buried alive. I mean, I was pinned. I had concrete all over my left side of my body. I was in a lot of pain. Dominic was buried only feet from me. My sergeant was 15 feet back in a fetal position. We were in a lot of pain, and it was a horror show. It was really bad. And then the second tower came down, which ended up taking my friend Dominic Pizzullo's life, who was trying to save me because he was trying to get me out. He was able to free himself, and we're in this little void, and he gave his life trying to get me out. And then we suffered for a lot of hours. I mean, I was buried for a total of 13 hours. My sergeant was the last man pulled out from underneath there out of the 2 of us. He was there almost 23 hours.
Wow.
Our injuries are severe. I mean, a lot of loss of muscle. We suffer from compartment syndrome. And but you know what? The guys that came and saved us from the NYPD ESU Truck 1, who I've become very good friends with, Scott Strauss, who led my operation, always says, Will, you and John, and it's fortunate for me, but unfortunate in the big picture is that he said, you were the only 2 we found that night after. For weeks, they looked for people in voids that he couldn't find anybody else. And for at least him, he said, you guys were that little bit of light for us. And that's, I always refer to, and I have a positive attitude in life is, if you suffer a tragedy and you don't find a light within that tragedy, then it's just that, a tragedy. And on 9/11, what I saw was people coming into, I can't even describe it. It was Armageddon times 100, that these men would put their lives in. They were yelled at, leave these guys. We had an approaching fire. They were ordered to leave us, and they said, no, we'll die with these guys. These are men that have families just like I do. My wife was 7 months pregnant with our second little daughter. I had a 4-year-old girl at home. My sergeant had 4 kids. But you know what? When he asked for volunteers and when he decided to go in, when I looked up in the towers and I saw people jumping, I took an oath to serve and protect. And I always apologize to my wife because I tell her, I said, Allison, I didn't think about you guys. I thought about the people jumping and how we needed to get up there, break or through a wall so they can see our uniforms and say, come on, let's get you home.
Yeah.
So I always apologize to her, but, that's the job. And that's why this country is great, because we have Americans who are willing to put their lives for total strangers because they're fellow Americans and just human beings. And that's what makes us a great nation. So, never, be ashamed to be proud of that you're an American,
Absolutely.
and proud that for me, whatever freedom I choose to do, people have earned that for me. I've gone and earned it for myself with serving in the military, so when I go hunting, I'm proud of it, and listen, I'm a kid from Hackensack, New Jersey. I didn't start bow hunting till I met my wife, Allison. She's the one that got me into bow hunting. I was a gunner's mate. I was into guns, but she's the one that said, hey, you want to try something? I got into bow hunting, and she said, wait a second, it was only bow hunting. Then it went from bow hunting to this hunting to this hunting, and the last several years I've been in the coyotes. And
Nice.
she's like, oh, man, it doesn't stop with you, and I got to tell you, I mean, the coyote hunting is a thrill. It really, really is. It took me, honestly, 2 years to kill my first coyote here in New Jersey because these dogs here, they circle us. And so I got to find big, big fields to have them come out, and,
Yeah.
I refer to New Jersey as New Germany because they're sometimes backwards here. But, we don't have a 365-day season here on these dogs.
Yeah.
We can kill them just, if we're bow hunting, they come by, but our season is not till January till March 15th. So, I'm just getting back into, going out for dogs, but I enjoy it. And every time I'm out there, I sit back and as I get the caller going, as I howl, I take a deep breath every time I go out hunting, guys. And I tell everybody this, always take a deep breath and just say thanks to all those that have given their lives so you can do this today.
Yeah.
And do it as much as you can. There's not enough
Absolutely.
because life is short. And I'm going to share this with you, and I hope this motivates people because, I do a lot of speaking engagements, and one of the things I tell the kids is, there's 365 days in a year. So if you're lucky to live till 90, part of that time you're in diapers. And if we get up to 90, a lot of times we revert to diapers. So if you do the math, which I won't tell the people the number, is 365 times 90. If you're lucky to live till 90, see how many days you have on this earth.
Yeah.
It's not a lot. It's not a lot. So make the most of it. Get out there, do what you love, be proud of what you do, and like I said, when it comes to hunting, get out there as much as you can, because sooner or later, even if you reach till 90, sometimes our bodies ain't going to let us get out there. And there's nothing to me better than just being outfield, watching the
Yeah.
sunrise, watching the sunset, you know, listen to those coyotes howl, watching big bucks walk by, all the critters. It's just, it's beautiful, because take it from somebody, and I know some of you understand where I'm coming from, who's been hospitalized, who says, I might never walk again. That was something that I had to deal with. My
Yeah.
wife, even, I was at Bellevue Hospital. My wife told the doctor, about a week into it, I was in intensive care for a month, really banged up. And the doctors, I said to my wife, you got any questions? And she blew his mind, because she's like, do you think he'll be able to climb again? And she's like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, he's a hunter. You think he's going to be able to get in a tree stand? He started laughing. He goes, well, let's work on just getting him to walk first. But guess
Yeah.
what? Because of my will to push forward, my family behind me, and I got to tell you, the hunting community was great to me. I mean, just the outpouring of support motivated me so much. I mean, I'm very tight with Mossy Oak.
Yeah.
You have Toxie Hayes and all those guys. I mean, they're family to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just a guy from New Jersey. And you realize we're Americans. Doesn't matter what part of the country we are. When you love the red, white, and blue, we are all brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
And that's something I'm proud of. And I want everybody on this podcast to know that if you believe in being American, we're all brothers and sisters, and we all stand up for everything so many of our brothers and sisters have fought for and died for. And it's our job, our duty, as those that are survivors and those who are living today, to pass that down. And I
Yeah.
instill in my
Absolutely.
girls. I take my girls, I teach them about freedom. We go to the range. They're always, I mean, my daughter just came back, and, yesterday after the shooting, she's like, Dad, right away they want to blame guns.
Yep.
And she gets it. She's like, it's not the gun. It's not the gun. I mean, I tell people, let's take all the liquor away. How many people die every night, every month to DWIs? Nobody's
Yeah.
talking about that. But they're quick to want to take our freedoms for the few people that do horrific things, and that's
Or
not right.
or they want to give excuses.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is there are people, and something, I want everybody to remember, is a quote that I always talk about. All that evil needs to triumph is for good men to stand by and do nothing. That's a quote from Edmund Burke, a British philosopher. The bottom line is there's always going to be evil, but it will never win, because you know what? There's always going to be good, and I would say good men and women who are going to step up, you
Yeah.
know? And that's something that I want to reaffirm to everyone who's listening tonight, because sometimes people think it's the end of the world. It is not. It's not.
Yeah.
We have suffered a lot. We've seen fellow Americans be killed by terrorists, by crazy people, but we come back strong. And I want people to understand that, happiness is something that you forge forward to, and you will find it. We all find it together. But again, tough times don't last. Tough people do, and Americans are tough.
Yeah. That's right. It's a shame that sometimes it takes tragedy to bring people together and make them strong. Um, it's I had heard, I wasn't there, but I'd heard the strength in the communities and the strength in the people up there and the whole demeanor of the cities had changed for quite a while because of that tragedy and everybody coming together and
And
sometimes
that's
it
true.
sometimes it's bad to say, but sometimes it takes a tragedy or an accident or an incident of some sort to bring people together and uh, you know man.
It does. And let me share something with you that a lot of people will never hear about. So I was in intensive care in Bellevue Hospital. Bellevue Hospital is one of the busiest hospitals in New York City. For 2 weeks, Steve, for 2 weeks, they did not have a victim of a crime come into Bellevue Hospital.
Yeah.
The doctors and nurses were talking about, because every night they had stabbing, shooting, something.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks, it seems as if the world within the United States, especially New York City, realized what a tragedy we had suffered. That people were so kind to each other. Crime was pretty much just stopped. Unfortunately, 2 weeks into it, I remember they brought a guy in that had been stabbed, but for 2 weeks, which that says a lot,
Yeah.
that people were being kind to each other. People weren't out to get each other,
Yeah.
and I share that because going back to what you said, it not only changed, us up here, it just changed everybody.
Yeah.
And the outpouring from law enforcement departments from across the nation was immense. I mean, they wanted to visit with us, although they couldn't really because we're intensive care. I mean, we were kind of kept secret till they figured we were going to live. And
Yeah.
that's when the media outlets came to us. They're like, well, these two guys, which eventually led to the movie by Oliver Stone to be made. And we're proud of that film because when me and my sergeant were approached about that, we were nervous because we were like, hey, man, Hollywood's just going to take it and butcher it. And I told Oliver Stone right here in my house, because I have the dog tags with my buddies who we lost hanging on a cross in my office. And he walked in. And I told him right then and there, I said, listen, we're not doing this for money. We're not doing this for fame. We're doing this so people will know what our teammates did. So people will see the strength and the love that we saw within those towers. And I said, Oliver, don't forget, you served our nation. And a lot of people don't know that, Platoon, the movie Platoon, pretty much is what Oliver went through. And he thanked me. He said, you know what? And you're talking Oliver Stone. He's a big liberal. And he got along with me, and he said, you know what? It's been a long time. I kind of put Vietnam behind me, but I remember my fellow Americans dying there. And you're right. We have to do this right. And I thank him for that because when he did that film, there was no conspiracy theory. He just told the story as we had told in the media prior. And it showed the strength of people, and that's what we're proud about that film because it shows you that you can overcome tragedies. And that's something I want everybody here to understand. Because right now, somebody is listening to this podcast who is going through some trials and tribulations. And I want them to know that you keep forging ahead and you're going to be okay. It might be a long road. It might be a really tough road. But if you keep at it, you will. Because I not only had to deal with my physical injuries, I had to deal with the PTSD.
Yeah.
And my wife, God bless her, what she's put up with is something. And that's when I saw the PTSD being bad, where one night I've never raised my hand to a woman, and I almost threw a shoe at my wife's head, and I was about to throw it, and I threw it the other way because I'm like, I'm not going to hit her. But I was so embarrassed. I actually got in my truck and I went up into the woods where I hunt, and I just sat there and I thought about it. Came home, and my little girl, my little girl had been born already. And I walked in and talked to my Bianca, my older girl, and I said, does Daddy yell on? She said, yeah, Daddy, you scare me. And that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to talk to somebody about this post-traumatic stress disorder. Because the way I looked at it was, if I'm not a good father, if I'm not a good husband, these terrorists would have touched another generation.
Absolutely.
Because then my kids might be messed up. And I say this because if there's any vets out there, any police officers, anybody who's dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, you owe it to yourself to be happy. Yeah. And trust me, unless you felt or have to suffer with PTSD, you don't get it. I tell people this all the time because, and people mean well. They want to understand you. But I'm like, listen, let me give it to you like this. That's like me asking my wife, I know what it's like. I think I know what it's like to give birth as a man. We will never know what it's like to give birth. Yeah, so those brothers and sisters that are suffering with PTSD, no matter how much you try to understand it, it's an evil thing. It's a dark thing, but you have to fight to be happy, and it's a constant fight. I tell people, when will 9/11 and my PTSD be forgotten? It's the day they bury me, because I still have to watch myself I suffer from like anger with PTSD. Yeah. And I have to watch it. And that's another reason I wanted to get on this podcast, because I know you get a lot of people that listen to you who have served and unfortunately have PTSD. And I want them to know that damn, they deserve to be happy. You know,
Yeah,
you've given
absolutely.
so much to this nation, you deserve it. And there are people out there that are willing to listen to you, willing to talk, willing to work with you. And for me, it was hard because, you know, you could talk to certain psychiatrists or doctors and you just still don't feel comfortable. You
Yeah,
have to find somebody who's going to help you that you can go in there, open up to, and feel comfortable with. And, you know, you do it for yourself, you do it for your family. And when you're feeling down, you know what? You reach out to somebody. And you know what? The outdoors is a great way. I always say something that I've talked to many guys with PTSD. The outdoors is an amazing thing. It gets you out there. It helps you with the post traumatic stress disorder. So, you know, when I hear people talking about, oh, hunting's no good or this, they have no fucking clue. Oh, excuse my French.
that's all
They
right.
have
That's
they have no clue.
yeah,
They have no clue. And these are the prices that we pay as Americans for us to be free. You know,
yeah,
so as a PTSD uh, person, you know, I tell everybody that I've had a long road to get to where I'm at now to be happy, but I'm here. You
yeah.
know, with the support of my family, support of my friends, the support of many outdoorsmen and women. You know, it's a positive thing to have so many good people around you. You know, and you know that's why I said at the end of your show, man, those words mean so much to me that I had to reach out to you.
You know, I'm glad you did. I tell you, a lot of people, there's a lot of people, and I ain't calling anybody out or anything, but there's a lot of people that use veterans, and there's a lot of people that use disabilities, and there's a lot of people that use certain things to gain fame or likes or views or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've just, Dog Soldier's always been a personality based show, and I'm kind of hard headed, and I don't want to be read wrong, so I kind of just stick to myself when I'm hunting and doing my thing, and but as a and I don't even know if I like this word anymore. I always say, as a public figure, I feel like it's my responsibility. I don't think I'm a public figure anymore. I came to that conclusion last week. Um, I think I'm just Steve Kreiner, and people like listening to me talk. It's my obligation. One time the girls come out here. I went through a divorce 3 years ago, and me and my wife Emily, we live in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I'm several hours away from my little girls, and I get to see them all the time. But when in the summer times when they come out and stay with me, me and Emily, we ride bikes a lot and hang out. And one time we sat on this little park bench overlooking Sheridan, and Zoe's like, "Man, it's pretty cool how the town kind of sits below this hill. You kind of see everything." And I told her, one time I told her, I was like, "You understand that, that this is America, and people fight and die for this, and there's only one thing that we'll never lose, ever. We'll lose parents, we'll lose brothers, we'll lose sisters, we'll lose friends. We'll have new trucks, we'll miss big whitetail deer, we'll lose a lot of shit. But there's only one thing that we'll never lose, and that's being an American."
Yeah.
And she understood that, surprisingly. As a 10-year-old, she's like, "Yeah, we'll be Americans. We were born here." And it's just like and she may grow up to be a liberal. I don't know. But not all liberals are bad or anything like that. But I'm just,
Yeah.
she gets it. And, when you reached out to me, I'm so embarrassed because, for one, I didn't realize it. And for two, it's so hard for me sometimes. It's so hard for me. I'm a very self-conscious person. I wear my heart on my sleeve a little bit, and I let shit get to me a lot. But it's so hard for me. My kind of thing I deal with is anxiety, just due to my job and due to some life changes and things like that. And it's very, very hard for me to be proud of myself. And it's very hard for me to feel like I'm accomplishing something. But one damn thing that I am so proud of, and that I'll never lose, for everybody listening on SoundCloud and everything else, the one thing, probably the only thing that I am proud of 100% of the freaking time, is that I'm American, and I'm freaking proud of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And it
And
keeps me going. I just, when I say at the end of the show, thank a veteran. And now I'm into this groove where I'm like, saying shit like, I don't care if you got to drive to Walmart or McDonald's today and find one. Find somebody and thank them every day. And I've thought about doing a show, and I'm probably going to give my pitch away right here. Maybe somebody else will do it. I thought about doing a show, just called American Heroes. And all I do is drive around and go to damn Walmart or McDonald's or wherever and find a veteran and hear their story. And there's so many people that won't. I've even got my little girl where she'll walk up, every now and then. She'll be like, hey, he's got a hat on, and she'll go thank him,
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want the attention, and I understand that. And a lot of people can't handle maybe the eyeballs, and I understand that too. But the gratification, or I don't even know if that's the right word, my heart gets so full of happiness, and I'm so proud of myself. Like, that's probably the only thing that I can really say, dude, I'm happy that I'm an American and I'm a patriot. I don't know if you heard my story. I got kicked out of school a week before I shipped to the Marine Corps. I was in the delayed entry program for 364 days.
Mm-hmm.
Supposed to ship on the 64th day, which you're only allowed to be in there 364 days. Well, I joined as quick as I could, and I was in the delayed entry program all year, and then I ran my stupid mouth and got kicked out of school, and the teacher took my credit, and then I just had a snowball of excuses and yada, 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 and I just started rodeoing and doing shit like that, and, I cannot, that's the only thing that I can be proud of is how much I appreciate what you guys do.
Well, that means a lot. I tell people all the time, like when I'm at the airports, I'm traveling, I see someone in uniform, I just say, hey, thanks for your service. And I know as a police officer, something I tell to the young police officers, like, listen, when you do this job, you do it because you love the job. When you join the military, it's because you want to serve your nation. You don't expect people a pat on the back. If you're expecting a pat on the back every night, you join for the wrong reasons. But it is nice when someone says, hey, thank you for what you're doing. It makes you feel good. It makes you understand that you are appreciated, and something that's very powerful. And we need to do that to our servicemen and women, and police officers, firefighters. I do it to doctors. I do it to teachers. I tell teachers, you guys are heroes. You are teaching our next generation. I want kids, when I go speak, I let them know. Make sure, because a lot of people like to take this word hero. They'll have sports heroes. And I tell them that's cool. You Eli Manning, whoever your sports figure is, but you got to look at the real heroes in your life, the people that protect you every single day. That cop, that firefighter who's going to run into your burning home to save it or save somebody in it. That EMT that's going to save your life while you're getting to the hospital. And it's important. It's powerful. It is. I mean, you are making a difference in the life of a fellow American every single day. And like I said, I'm going back again. I know I'm beating this like a dead horse, but your message at the end of every show, which I love your shows, man. It's great. You go out there, you kill these dogs. I learn a lot from you on there, but it's sincere. And every show should end like that. And when, again, I go back to when people start getting sick of hearing people thank a service person or just being proud of this country, you know what? You need to take a trip to like Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, and then come back. I had the honor a couple weeks ago, and I showed you pictures that I was invited to the film premiere of 12 Strong, the Green Berets that went in and fought the Taliban, the first Americans to have, combat with the Taliban. I was invited there because Michael Pena, who played my part in World Trade Center, we're still tight. He invited me there. It was such an honor to meet these Green Berets,
Absolutely.
And they're hugging me, and they're like, oh, but we're like, at the end of the day, guys, we're all Americans. We're just guys that love our country and serve our country. We're just normal people. We're no superheroes. We all, I tell everybody, listen, I don't care if you watch as many movies you want. On 9/11, when a piece of concrete hits you, I don't care if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're going down.
Yeah.
We're all human beings. I mean, my friend Dominic was a weightlifter guy who was in great shape, and, we lost him, and these are just your normal Americans who feel, hey, I'm going to do a job. I'm going to do the best I can, and I want to give back. You want to make our communities better. That's why I became a police officer. I want to make, where I worked a better place. I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a
Yeah.
difference. I wasn't there just to arrest people. I wanted to go home. And I'll tell everybody this: the first day I felt like a cop was not my first drug arrest, or gun arrest. It was a day that I helped a bilingual woman because I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish. Who was robbed. I helped her with all the paperwork. I got her on a bus, and she turned around, gave me a big hug and kiss, and thanked me. The next
Yeah.
day, my sergeant said, "Hey, you got a phone call." A sergeant from Hackensack back in Jersey, because I worked at the bus terminal in New York. I picked up the phone, and there's actually a guy that I knew. And I said, "Hey, Tom, what's up?" He's like, "Do you know who you helped yesterday?" I said, "No, I have no idea. I helped this lady who got robbed. That's my wife's grandma." That was so
Oh,
gratifying.
sweet.
He said,
Yeah.
"Will," and I went home that day, and I told my wife, I said, "Today I felt like a cop because I made a difference in someone's life, a
Yeah.
positive difference." And that's what all our men and women today, right now, overseas, are doing for us. They're making sure we're safe. They're making sure that we can live and go and come as we please with freedom and no fear. And again, going back to liberals, not all liberals are bad. And you know what? I tell liberals if I meet them and we have a difference of opinion, that's why I fought for this country. That's why I serve. So
Yeah.
you have the opportunity to have a difference of opinion and not worry that you're going to disappear. You know,
Yep.
and that's why I tell people when we get into like a discussion with an anti, which you just can't talk to them. But
Yeah.
I tell them, you know why? I'm free and I'm able to do. I want to go hunt coyotes. That's my prerogative. That's my privilege. That's something that is freedom. You know,
Yeah.
and and I always tell them, listen, what you're preaching now, if you go to Russia and they don't want to hear it, you're not going to be able to do those things. Oh well, well, okay, I'm just letting you know, because one of the things I learned, the best things I learned in the military was I went to 11 different countries, and one thing as a sailor coming back into San Diego Bay at 19 years old, the one thing we all knew, no matter what your background was, it was that this was the greatest country on earth. And we understood that from traveling. This is the best country in the world. And because of our freedoms, and I'm very proud of that, and I want everybody to be proud of that. Everybody who's listening to this, if for any reason someone says to you, "Oh, you're too patriotic," that person's lost their mind,
Yeah.
because they're allowed to say that to you because they are free, and I appreciate, you just having me on and being able to talk to this. And I tell everybody, I'm very proud of the movie World Trade Center. It came out in 2006. I mean, I can't even believe they made a film about us because, like I tell everybody, and I was just telling the Green Berets we're talking about, there's so many Americans, so many stories just on that day on 9/11 that deserve to be told. They happen to pick us because of the extreme thing, but there's so many brave stories that came out of that day. So many people who became heroes that day, and what I tell every person who's listening here, you are a hero to this nation. Every day that you do something positive, every day that you make this world, America, a better place, you are a hero. A lot of people like to throw that word hero around, but heroes are every single day common people, people that are positive, people that look out for people, people who raise their kids in a proper way, to let them be good people. Those are heroes. So I want everybody to know that's listening to this, you are a hero. You love this country. You try to do better for this country. You do something every day to make this country better. You are a hero.
Yeah. I didn't know what to talk about when we were going to do this. Usually I'm mouthy and just all over the place, and I didn't know what to talk about. I was like, man, what are we going to talk about? But you're talking. The conversation we're having right now means so much to me, and it probably means to a lot to the people watching right now and the people listening. And I have been. First of all, really hadn't touched on the story of that day really because there is the movie, and I know you had said it was really accurate, and but I wanted to talk to you about how freaking positive you are, and how big of a patriot you are, and how big of a hero you are, and the things you're doing, not just that day, but the things you're doing afterwards keeps a lot of people, their heads on straight. Here lately, I've been talking a lot about, positivity. I try to be positive, and there's a lot of things that go on in my career that is childish as hell.
Well, I
Hunter's
always tell
actually.
everybody, you never grow out of high school. I tell everybody, it doesn't matter how old we get, you just don't outgrow high school, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah, that's right. And it don't matter if I piss somebody off, they try to ruin my career. If I piss somebody off, they call oh boy and tell them I suck. It's always something. And so instead of worrying about these negativities, I really try to be positive,
Yeah.
and and I'm really trying to be a better businessman, and I'm trying to learn a lot more now, and I'm growing up. I guess I turned 39 the other day, and I'm trying to step up my business game. I'm trying to step up what I do business wise, and I'm actually thinking about going back to. It's not really an official school, but it's a business academy, and thinking positive helps me. But you know what? I sit here and think, first of all, and then it's just a personal issue with my high school days, and I think that's a problem I've always had. I've been a pretty negative person most of my life. Um, if somebody mouthed me, I hit them. I didn't talk it over with them. I didn't try to make it better. I just hit them. In high school, I fought it extremely a lot, and
Mhm.
um, I I don't know why. I think that what I did that last week of school and what I didn't do every time one of my best friends, Sergeant Mike Dante, he was a Bradley commander and did 3 tours, and every time I'm around him, if I hear him talk or it's something I can't get away from is being I deal with being ashamed a lot. And when I listen to you and I see how you handle the trials and tribulations in your life and how you're so positive, it actually gives people that have made mistakes in their life, like myself. I tell everybody I just put on my boots every day like everybody else, and I'm just a regular guy. I've made some severe mistakes in my life, but I'm good. Everything's going great. Um, I've never been a drug addict or a criminal or anything like that, but I've made some severe life altering decisions that just didn't work out when I was really young. And talking to you, I was really nervous tonight, and I think I've got it pinned down. I think I was just ashamed, to be honest about it.
Well, I'll
The
stop you right there because there's nothing to be ashamed about. I tell everybody it's a simple fact. It's not how we start; it's how we end up. And
Yeah,
I take it from somebody who was pretty much close to death. I mean,
yep,
we pretty much were dying down there. If you have any opportunity to make a change every day, and I tell everybody that every day that you're alive is a gift. It really, truly is. That's why it doesn't matter if it's snowing, raining, sunshine. I go out and I take a deep breath every morning. I walk out of this house, and I thank God for allowing me to have another day. I tell my girls, if I die tomorrow, just remember you had all these years with me when all my friends who had kids about the same age, they never had their dad. And
yeah,
I said, every day, we're human beings. We make mistakes,
yeah,
and while we have time to correct them, that's the goal. It's not where
yeah,
we start. It's how, it's not how we start. It's how we end up. And I tell my girls that there's going to be, you're going to make mistakes in life. It's just part of life. But you know what? If you work hard at trying to change those mistakes, trying to better yourself, trying to better those around you, and you're on the right path. I mean, there's people just life is good, and if anybody follows me on Facebook, you'll always see me put life is good because it is good,
yeah,
and I'll put it down even through tragedy. Life is still good because there's tragedies every day. Heck, there's tragedies happening around the world that probably are worse than what we've been through just yesterday, which I'm
yeah,
not trying to, my heart goes out to everybody in Florida. But,
yeah.
there's tragedies that happen around this world that are just so horrific you can't even
Every day.
believe, and you don't hear about it,
Yeah,
you know? But we can be better people every single day. And I tell everybody, again, I go back to the people who have PTSD. You take someone who's in a dark space, and they're like, the world's coming on. No, fight for it, work for it, and don't be
absolutely.
ashamed to fail. Failure is just, and listen, I'm going to share this with you guys. You'll see it in the movie, but, I'm Catholic. My mom instilled a lot of faith in me and a lot of positivity in me. And that day, we had lost my partners. All 3 of them had died. Uh, my, first 2 buildings had fallen on us.
Yeah.
At one point down there, I was in so much pain. My sergeant was 15 feet back. I was buried in this little void. There was a hole above us about 30 feet where I could see out, and that's where I was yelling constantly. So I want everybody to imagine. You have these two buildings, and there's a center point. We were about 30 yards or 40 yards from that center point, so we actually had both towers fall on us. And at one point, I wanted to give up. I wanted to die.
Yeah.
And I was just so exhausted. I made my peace with God. I said, God, thank you for 32 great years. Thank you for my parents who brought me to this great country. Thank you for allowing me to have my beautiful wife Allison and my 4 years with my little girl. Uh, I said, but the things I'm going to regret are just two things: that we couldn't get everybody out, and that I'm going to die and not see my little girl be born.
Yeah.
But I thank God, and I said to him, you know what? Today I die. I die as American, and I die as someone that knows they were trying to do the right thing to get people out. And I close my eyes and I tell people, you can call it whatever you want. A vision. I passed out. I was daydreaming,
Yeah.
but I closed my eyes. All right, after being crushed, losing teammates, fireballs had fallen in that were starting to burn me. Then my buddy's gun went off. 15 rounds went up above my head. I was exhausted physically, mentally. I just wanted to die. And I closed my eyes and I had a vision. I see this person walking toward me with a white glowing robe, no face, brown hair. And I asked God for two things. I said, God, if I get to heaven, because I felt everybody that day was going to heaven because they were killed by cowards, was to somehow, some way let me be there for the birth of my second daughter. And when I got to heaven, and I tell people, you can always laugh, is I wanted water because we were caked in concrete. I just wanted
Yeah.
so much water. So here's this vision of a person walking toward me, white glowing robe, no face, like I said, brown hair, and I knew who it was. To me, it was Jesus, you know. And what has he got in his hand? A bottle of water.
Yeah.
And
It's.
I
I was.
snapped out of that. I snapped out of that. I felt no pain for those moments. When I snapped out of that, I felt the pain again, and I said to my sergeant, Sarge, we're gonna, with some colorful words, we're gonna fight or we'll die on our own terms. Because at that point, I realized I was about to give up. I was going
Yeah.
to give up on my sergeant because nobody would hear him. He was about 15 feet back. Nobody would hear him yelling. I would have given up on my family, on trying to make it home to them. I would have given up on my country. But most of all, I would have given up on myself. And at that point, I decided if I'm going to die, I'm going to die on my terms. Because if I would have given up and just closed my eyes, which I probably would have died, I would have allowed the terrorists to win. I would have allowed
Yep.
evil to win. I would have allowed something that was blocking me from getting to be happiness to win. And I made at that point a conscious effort to fight. And I can't express to you how beat up our bodies were. We were swollen. We're suffering from compartment syndrome where our bodies. I was looking probably like the Michelin Man, probably 4 times my size because we were swelling up.
Yeah.
But I kept fighting until 8 p.m. that night. I heard in the distance 3 guys, 2 Marine reservists and a civilian, who were brave enough to come into the epicenter where they weren't letting anybody in, saying, United States Marine Corps, can anybody hear us? And I started yelling. They found me and my sergeant. Then that's when the NYP ESU unit came in. And they worked on me for 3 hours before they pulled me out.
Yeah.
And I remember when they started pulling me out in the Stokes basket, the first time I cried that night wasn't when the guys died, not when from the pain. When they pulled me out of the hole, I looked up and I saw the towers were gone. I could see the moon because it was a beautiful night, and but a lot of fire. And I said, "Where's everything?" And the firefighter said, "It's all gone, kid." That's the first time I cried that night.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I realized I didn't give up. And here I am today, talking to Steve, the dog soldier. So you know what? The message to you and everybody else is don't give up. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your family. Never give up on your country. And you keep forging forward. And there are going to be times that, man, I understand. You don't think you're going to make it. Take it from someone who was pretty much as close to death as I think anybody can get. You got to keep forging forward. It's not easy, but you deserve it. And don't ever forget that.
Yeah. What I was getting at a while ago, pinning down why I was so nervous about this podcast. And this podcast is going to be really good for a lot of people because I'm getting it now. Um, somebody that's been through so much and being so positive and so American, it just, it's touching, man. It's awesome. And I'm usually one of the guys that's like, hey, quit bitching. It could be worse, but I'm so hard on myself, a lot of the times, and a lot of people are harder on themselves, and then they let other people be on themselves, and that's one thing I would always do. I was so positive, and I try to be so positive for people around me, and I just try to live for everybody else, and then at the end of the day, I would just look in the mirror and I'd be like, shit, I didn't accomplish nothing, and. But now, being trying to be on a more positive track and really paying attention to business and not so much of the other stuff involved with my career or my life, and then this podcast, it's going to be great for everybody. And like I said earlier, for 20 years from now, people's going to listen to this podcast and be like, man, them guys had it going on, but that one guy went through all that stuff and was so positive. Man, it's just nobody can be, what a lot of people go through in this country, and then they're so positive. It's just, it makes my heart happy, how positive you are.
Well,
Because,
I gotta tell you though, I also look at other people. My sergeant took double the injuries I have. I
yeah,
mean, he always says he's the weeble wobble man because he lost most of his buttocks. He still has open wounds today. That's what I tell people. When I have a bad day, I think of my sergeant, my boss.
yeah,
He has open wounds because the way he was in a fetal position, he has open wounds today. You talk
wow,
about 2001, we're in 2018. He has to change bandages every day. So when I have a bad day, I look up to him and say, you know what? I got one bad leg because I was crushed on my left side, and I got to wear a brace because I have drop foot. And there are days that my legs don't work; they just stop working. I got to go sit down and
yeah,
take some Advil, and then I think about my boss, who made sure his sons became Eagle Scouts. He went out there camping with them. I've seen him bleed through his jeans, and he just says, "Man, let me go to the bathroom. Let me clean up. We're gonna keep going."
yeah,
And this is a man who was buried an additional almost 8 hours more than me. Who was in a coma for 6 weeks. But
yeah,
we're here, and we're banged up. I always said to everybody, I told my girls, listen, I might not be able to run after you, but I can skip pretty good. And
yeah,
again, there's tough days. I mean, I am positive, but there are days that are rough. But I
yeah,
always keep at it, and you have to shake it off. You have to fight it off. And we all have it in us. That's what I want you and
yeah,
everybody to know. We have it in us. Don't ever give up on yourself. And it breaks my heart when I hear, 22 veterans a day. It's just like, man, you have so much to give to this world. And life is good. Life is good, but just like everything else, you got to work for it. You got to,
yeah,
it
that's
doesn't
right.
come easy. And like I said, we all make mistakes. The good thing about life is while you have time on this earth, you can correct the mistakes. You cannot make the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah,
Uh, and I got to tell you, my wife, I remember the first time I was watching your show one night, and she's like, "Who's that?" Because you had said, you know, "I'm Steve Criner, the Dog Soldier. I like shooting coyotes in the face." And I got to tell you, that was awesome because she stopped in her tracks, and again, she's a hunter. She said, "Who is that?" And she doesn't like coyotes. She's like, "Oh, he's got it. He's got the right idea." And I tell everybody around here, I actually use that saying every time you say that. When people around here says, "Will, you want to come by my farm and shoot coyotes? We have a problem." I said, "Yeah, they need to be shot in the face." And they laugh because they're like, "You know what? You're absolutely right. These coyotes need to be shot in the face because
yeah,
they're just killing their chickens and all this stuff that we have issues with around here." But I just want to let you know that because my wife always laughs about that. You watching that guy that shoots him in the face? I say, "Yeah, that's him." you know.
yeah.
So, but
I
I love the show though, man. Really love the show.
Yeah, the podcast I get a little loose lipped on, and just like the guys from the Sportsman Channel last week on the podcast, we were talking about how you can kind of get away with murder on a podcast. I try to reel it back a little bit anymore on the show. One time on the show, I called myself a lucky bastard, and a guy emailed me and he's like, "Man, I love your show, but when my 5-year-old's running around the house saying he's a lucky bastard like the dog soldier." So, I try to reel it back a little bit, and then I'm doing this new air gun show, which, the air gun
Yeah.
market over in the United States is huge.
Yeah.
but the air gun market over in Europe is tremendously huge. And, so I do things a little, I'm still myself, but I watch what I say a little bit on that show too. That way people don't think I'm a terrorist.
Yeah.
It's, man, I love life and I live it 100 mile an hour. And I try not to filter myself much because I have this, it's like I was talking about earlier, I go through a little bit of, where I'm negative and like, damn, I didn't, but I just feel like when I first started this business 15 years ago, there was so much of, man, he's somebody he's not, or he's acting like somebody's not, or it's all about him, or he's trying to be the next Michael Waddell. There was so much of that crap. And I was just like, man, I'm Steve Kreiner, and I've got to start being Steve Kreiner. And, I sold my rope horses last year now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've rodeoed my whole life, and I'm still a cowboy. But I've got tattoos from my neck all the way down to my wrist, and I'm getting some more. And I ride a Harley. I got me another Harley. And my mission, I think I'm going to get me a T-shirt, too. You're getting me to open up a little bit now, so we're getting cruising. It took us an hour, but I'm starting to limber up. I'm going to get me a T-shirt that said, my goal in life, and then it's going to have a slash on it like it was wrote on a chalkboard, to be the most unorthodox MFer that I can be. I mean, when you go through life, not only being positive, but when you start cheating other people about who you really are, then you're really super cheating yourself. And, I build tobacco pipes and I do leather work, and, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I've raced motorcycles, I've rode Harleys, I've rodeoed, I've rode bulls, I've done everything stupid that anybody could figure out to do. I've done it. And I think I like being that guy. A guy at SHOT Show said, man, look, you got a chain on your wallet. And I was like, hey, if you ain't figured out that I'm the most unorthodox MFer in this industry,
Yeah.
if
Well,
you
you
ain't
just got to be yourself, and I
yeah,
think people realize that when you're yourself, they can, listen. The guys that are fake, you can see through. I mean, that's just the
oh
reality.
yeah, yeah,
And if you're just yourself and you are who you are, uh, people love you for, and it's it. My dad always told me, people are gonna love you for who you are, and that's it, or they're gonna hate you. He's like,
yeah,
don't be the person that tries to be making people like you, because you're gonna find out that you're gonna be miserable. Be who you are, and hey, listen, you have a large following. I've been watching you for a couple of years now, and I love your show.
I
I
appreciate
love
it.
your attitude, and there's nothing wrong with that. If not, I wouldn't be tuning back in.
Yeah, I said on one of the first episodes of Dog Soldier, if you don't watch it, or if you don't like it, don't watch, and that kind of, you wouldn't believe how much positive emails I got off of that. And, 5 years later, I never realized, 5 years later, I didn't even know that podcasts are a new thing now,
Yes.
but you would not believe, like, I've wanted to do everything in my whole life. I wanted to be a Marine. I wanted to hunt for a living. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. I was going to go to school to be a cop one time. And of course, I was a jack off, so I didn't go. But, you know, it,
And there's a lot of cops that want to be the dog soldier.
I know. Here I am stuck on a podcast with one of the most influential people in the United States in
No,
my
I appreciate
eyes.
that, but I'm
Dude,
just, like I said, I'm just a regular guy that,
I know you
you
are.
know what, survived something really horrific, and as a survivor, that's my job. I tell everybody that all the time. I've been asked to, I'm speaking to another school next week. I have a couple universities I'm speaking to this year, and I'm blessed.
Nice.
But I tell everybody that's my job as a survivor, is to remind people of what the people we lost that day went through,
Yep.
and to come out with a positive message. So when they leave after hearing me speak, and I tell everybody this, because people will say, like, and you're saying some kind things to me, and people always say, Will, I can't imagine anything worse than the World Trade Center falling on you. 220 stories. And I said, you know what, man, or whoever I'm talking to, yes, you can. We all
Yeah.
have our World Trade Centers. Maybe you found out that, you lost a loved one. You found out you had cancer. You had a car accident. It could be as simple as for a child that, hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to get over this test.
Yeah.
You know, that's your World Trade Center. It's what we do with ourselves that determines that, who we are. And I tell people, you forge forward. So I tell people, please don't ever say, oh, I can't think of anything worse than the World Trade Center. Yes, you can. You stop and you think in your life of something that has happened or something that you're up against right now, you might as well have the World Trade Center fall on you. It's how you're going to fight to overcome that.
Yeah,
So
that's
and
right.
again, I tell people I am no different than Steve Kreiner or anybody listening to this podcast. I just was fortunate enough to know and have the fight in me not to give up. Again, I tell everybody this: I was gonna give up. I was just want to shut my eyes and die. I was in so much pain seeing my friends die. I mean, again, it was horrific, but here I am today. So, if somebody's going through something tough who's listening to this podcast, just say, hey, man, if that guy, and if you watch that movie, you know, if this guy and his sergeant could survive the World Trade Center,
Yeah.
220 stories hitting them, I can pay the bills at the end of them. I'll figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I'll figure a way how to get over this test. I will figure a way out if I'm unemployed to find a job and start over again. Because
Yeah, man.
again, people have some really hard times, and people just think it's hunky dory here in the United States because the economy's doing, but there are people out there suffering, and I want
Yeah.
everybody out there. If you are suffering, you can be, and you need to be a positive person and find that happiness. And Steve, like you said, you have some regrets and stuff, but man, you're doing great. You have a
Appreciate that.
a platform where you get to talk from your heart. You get to share your passion for coyote hunting and other things,
Yeah.
and that's something positive. I mean, every week, every time you do a show, you have the opportunity to do something positive, inspire people. And that's a gift, in itself.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I tell you, I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and I'm just like, man, maybe life's great, dude. You're right. I mean, it wasn't very long ago. A lot of people, as far that followed me for years, maybe some of them maybe noticed a change here and there every now and then. But it wasn't very long ago that when I went to bed at night, I didn't care if I ever woke up in the morning. Um, people go through things in life, and,
Yeah.
and like you said, people handle them. Sometimes we need a little help. You got a great support system. You got your family and your wife, and in my shoes, I got Emily. Emily is the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't even, and there ain't nothing wrong with it, but I don't even drink anymore.
Well, I haven't drank for years, but that's because I got one bad leg. I'll fall over if I get a buzz. But there's nothing wrong with that. I tell people, hey, I was in the Navy, and today I have no problem telling people, listen. I mean, you know what? I got to meet Jesse Harnett, who's a Philly cop. If you remember, or anybody in the podcast last year, his court case just came due. He was the Philly cop that the terrorists ran up and shot him in the car.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
had the honor and pleasure of meeting him and becoming friends with him. And I remember the first time I went out there, he was all banged up, and I said, "Listen, I don't drink anymore, but I'm gonna have a beer with you." I said, "It's probably the first beer I've had in several years, but I'm gonna have a beer with you because of what you went through." But I have no problem telling my friends, who some are the tough guys, "Hey, I don't drink anymore. Occasionally, do I have a drink? Yeah, if it's a special occasion, but that's fine. I drank
Yeah.
enough in the Navy, and I said I have no problem, and this is who I am. If you're my buddy, you accept me for that."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. That's
if
right.
something goes down, I got your back.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
So you're, not to change the subject. You're in New Jersey, right?
Yes, I am in New Jersey, as I like to refer to it, New Germany.
Yeah. How far are you from Maine? Because I think we're gonna buy a place on the coast in Maine to summer at.
Maine is probably what I would imagine 7 hours. I go up to New Brunswick. I used to go up to New Brunswick to bear hunt right over the border there.
Yeah.
So Maine's probably like about 6 or 7 hours.
Man,
Beautiful
that's
place, Maine.
6 or 7 hours ain't nothing. If you
No,
Not for me. Hell, I just drove. We were in Texas last week and had a good trip, and
awesome.
and I'm gonna do another podcast probably Saturday night, on the post Texas trip podcast. But we drove 17 hours that day back, and man, 7 hours ain't nothing. If I get up that way, dude, I'd like to hang out sometime. That'd be
Well,
that'd be a blast.
you're more than welcome, and could take you down to the trade center, show you that, show you my buddies' names. I mean, that's and something I recommend to everybody who's listening to the podcast. is if you ever do get a chance to come to New York City, and if you have, you can attest to the fact that they did a great job down at the World Trade Center Memorial, the museum. I encourage everybody to take their kids to teach them about it. I mean, it to me, it's like when I was in the Navy, pulled into Pearl Harbor, and I got to see the USS Arizona. It was so impactful on me, and I think the Trade Center, the World Trade Center Museum, is something that every American should go and see and understand
Yeah,
that even though we're the greatest country on earth, we still can be attacked and we still can suffer great losses. And it's a reminder that, again, that freedom is not free. So, and something I urge everybody is to learn American history. I tell everybody all the time, it scares me
absolutely.
because I have teachers that reach out that ask me to come speak their schools because the curriculums are different. I mean, you want to talk about patriotism instilled in me, just watching TV shows and movies from World War II, Vietnam, and seeing the sacrifices that our soldiers made.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
important that we never forget our history because we're bound to make mistakes. And again, uh, I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 2, served in the Navy, became an American citizen, love this country. And I tell Americans that are born here, if I love this country as much, hell, you were born here. You better
Yeah.
adore this country. And the way you do that is by learning your history. Learn about, and if teachers aren't teaching, you figure it out. The internet's easy. You can look up, become a history buff. You will learn uh, everything you need about what it took for us to be here and to have the freedoms you have. It's very important. So I highly recommend for anybody who does visit the New York City to take the time to go down to the memorial, go down to the footprints where the two towers actually stood, and pay your respect to those that we lost that day, as you would any other uh, monument in the United States.
Yeah, maybe I can get my girls up there one summer on their summer break and we can all hook up and go check that out.
Absolutely, it,
That'd be
it it'd be
awesome,
my
man.
pleasure. It really would be.
So how old are your girls now?
Well, I got one daughter who is a junior at Auburn University, and I have a sophomore here, my Olivia, who actually was born on my birthday because my wife had a planned C-section. So on 9/11, she was 7 months pregnant, and my birthday gift, which my birthday is November 26th, on that day, Olivia was born, and I always say that's her birthday now, but it's a
Yeah.
true gift for me. That was I said to Allison, you couldn't have given me a better gift, and
Yeah.
so I'm blessed. I got the girls. They're both good shots. I mean, I got to tell you,
Good.
women are always better shots than guys because they lack that thing called ego. They listen.
Oh yeah.
And I'll tell you what, my daughter Olivia took her first turkey this past year.
Sweet.
We're getting ready to do some turkey hunting here in April, and she's excited about it. So, like I always tell her, I said, listen, you shot that 20, I think it was 21-pound gobbler, 12-inch beard last year. I said, uh, took about 20 minutes to kill it, and she, of course, doesn't understand. She's like, Dad, that was cool. That was fast. I said, I got a buddy she's been hunting turkeys for 8 years, hasn't killed one. But
Yep.
she enjoys it. I enjoy it. I'm just blessed. I really, really am blessed to be in this country, to have my beautiful wife, Allison, to have my two beautiful girls, and I try to just, I tell everybody, I just try to capture every day, man. I wish I could
Yeah.
just lock up every day in all the memories because they go so fast.
Yeah. I tell you right now, man. With what you just said, man, we're glad to have you here.
I pre I
You know,
appreciate that, man. I
we're
really do.
glad to
I
have
mean,
you as an American.
I try to do my part. I really do. Anytime I have that opportunity, I want people when they hear me speak to understand that they should walk out pumped, they should walk out patriotic, and understand that there are millions upon millions of Americans that we feel the same way.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, and I hate to say it, the media, it really wants to push us. I don't know where they want to push us, but
Yep.
it's like they want to divide us. And this past election, it showed that many of us just are tired of the BS, and we want
Absolutely.
America to be America. We want it to be what we want it to be,
Yeah.
without shame. That again, it goes back to don't try to shame me for being patriotic. Don't tell me that you know because I'm against illegal immigration, I'm a racist. No,
Yeah.
sir. Because take it for somebody who knows. Because I still have family in Colombia. They're suffering the same thing as America. They're having illegal immigration from Venezuela because of what Venezuela's going through, as
Yeah.
well as Ecuador. And the Colombian people now are having illegal immigration. You know, does that make them racist because they want to protect their borders, or they want to protect their country?
Yeah.
No. You know, and we have no problems with immigrants, but you know, you do it the right way. You do everything the right way. That way, you know, you don't cut off the people who have been waiting online to get in. You
Yeah.
know, and
You know,
I mean, fair is
I,
fair.
I'll be honest. I don't care who comes over if they come over legally, but I'll look everybody in this damn camera right now on live, and I'll leave it on the iTunes. You can't find enough white guys to do the work around here. I'm just gonna
Oh,
say it plain
same
and
here.
simple. You know,
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, I have my landscaper buddy. He's an American, and his guys are great guys. They actually, I killed a big bear year before last. You know, big old bear over 500 pounds. All 10 of those Guatemalans came over to help me move it. You know, but
yeah,
and he says, and I always tell him, man, why don't you get some high school kids? He says, dude, I just can't
they
get
won't
kids to
freaking
go.
work. They
Yeah,
won't
and that's
work.
and you know that's the point. You know the country's been pushing for years getting a bachelor's degree. We need Americans that know trades.
Yeah,
We need that, you
absolutely.
know. And I'm not ashamed to say that, you know. And I tell Americans, don't be lazy. Don't be afraid to dirty your hands. Don't be. My dad was a welder. You know, that's what he was, and he gave us a good life. He worked hard. He worked 2 jobs, and I always tell my dad, I'm proud of you. You're my hero. You've always showed me
Yeah,
that working hard, you can accomplish what you want in life.
I
You
think
know?
I think you know, and I'm not wanting to beat on teachers here or anything, but society has taught us through the school systems and other places that hard work and education is everything, and I understand that. But they put people that, you know, get scholarships or academic scholarships, or people that can afford, or people that are smart enough to get to college even if they can't afford it. As far as, you know, I mean, a lot of people ain't smart enough to get student loans, but that's another problem. But what our society has instilled and is instilling in our children every day. I asked my little girl the other day what's she gonna do when she grows up. She goes, oh, I don't know. I have to go to college, and I'm like, I'm all about her working hard and going to college, and but you know what? If maybe she wants to be a finish carpenter,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe she wants to be a welder. I just don't get why we spend so much time telling our youth that they have to go to college, that they have to continue education. I'm all about continuing education, but don't belittle the kids that want to continue education in trades.
Like they say, they need to bring shop back to schools. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we
What's
need
wrong
more
with being a
vocational
roofer?
schools.
You know, I used to
Actually,
be a roofer.
there's nothing, and you know, and I always tell. That's why I tell people when the word hero. You know, my dad, something my dad told me is like, I don't care what you are in life, but be the best at it and love it. And he goes, if it means you're going to be a
Absolutely.
garbage man, be the best garbage man there is. Work hard. And I tell all the kids this when I talk to them too. I said, you know, when I say heroes, I said, how many people here think that your janitor or the garbage man are heroes?
Yep.
Very few will lift their hands. And I said, well, let me tell you something. If your janitor doesn't clean up after you, this whole place would be a mess. And how
Yep.
about the garbage man? If they don't show up for 2, 3 straight weeks, what are you guys gonna feel like? Then all of a sudden they kind of
Yep.
like realize, yeah, that garbage man, he's a hero. He leaves my garbage out there for 3 weeks. I got rats. It's an infestation. I said they keep everything clean. Everybody has a job to do. Find the
Or
job that you're happy at. Be proud of it. You know, I was talking to a cop today that asked me to call him just for a couple tips, and I said, listen, I've been off the job now over a decade, but the one thing I'll always tell you that my father told me is love what you do, be a professional at it, work hard at it. And if you
absolutely.
can do that, you're going to be okay.
You
And you
know,
know, and I don't care if you're the cashier at your local grocery store. If you're
yeah.
working hard and you're making an honest living, there's nothing to be ashamed about.
You know, I'm all the time getting aggravated. You know, with customer service, whether it be through Flextone, which you know builds all the Dog Soldier calls right now,
Hmm.
or if I hear customer issues with them, or if I go somewhere and you know, like it, you know, not like at McDonald's, you know, if I want ketchup, and I say, hey, you mind if I get ketchup? If somebody acts rude toward me, or and it don't matter if it's Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart. You know, one thing we have to learn as Americans, and our youth needs to learn, that every job that we do, we are a public servant, and we are
Hmm.
serving somebody or working for somebody. And I hate it when people belittle people for certain jobs, or I also hate it when people don't take care of the other end, which is, hey, take care of your customers, the
Yeah.
hand that feeds you. I hate the fact that people nowadays, kids nowadays, maybe not so much in small town America. I grew up in a town that was like 6,000 people, I think, and I worked at Sonic during the week, and then I got off on the weekends to fight bulls, and I flipped burgers, man, all through high school in my Wranglers. I had my buckle on. I'd tuck in my little shirt, and I acted like a badass running around in my cowboy boots flipping burgers, and then we'd go out and drink beer and hang out outside afterwards, and I never was once ashamed of, flipping a burger for somebody. I remember it's so weird. I look back at things that I've done in my youth and the direction that I was going and didn't even realize. I used to love it. I used to love it when girls like Sarah Ownby and Melissa Mannery and these girls that I went to school with, I loved it when they were busy and they couldn't get to that machine because I wanted to push that button, and I can do it still today. It's, "Hi, welcome to Sonic. How may I take your order?" and they would give me an order, and I'd say, "You want to upsize that to Route 44 for a dime more?" I used to love selling stuff to people.
Yeah.
And I loved, and of course, my wife says it all the time. My partner, Bill, I love hearing myself talk. That's why. That's, I just loved it. And now, I look at it today. I won't go broke because, first of all, I've had a CDL ever since I've had a Class A since I was 18, and I still carry it today, even though I haven't drove a truck in probably 15 years. But I've still got it. I'll never go broke. That's a trade. I'm a finished carpenter, and I build pipes. I mean, you won't believe the amount of money I make building pipes. So everybody, people the youth need to figure out that, hey, it's not ashamed. It's not shameful to go to work at McDonald's. It's not.
Absolutely not. I'll tell you what, my daughter's figuring that right now in college, how to make extra money. And she has some talents in some things, and she's finding out, hey, I can do this. And I tell her, and, at the end of the day, you got to pay the bills, and the bills don't care how you pay them, but you got to pay them. And be proud of what you're doing. Like I said, if you're doing something honest, and never be ashamed in that. And that's something, like you're saying, it has to be instilled in our children, because that teaches them self-confidence. And that's something my mother, and you got to understand, my mother, again, she's from Colombia. She became an American citizen, so proud when she became a citizen. And she talks English like it's hard to understand her. She would go to college for years at night to practice English. God bless her. And, we still kind of bust her chops when she says things, and a lot of things she'll say kind of crazy, but she doesn't care. She'll tell you, "How do you say it? Did I say that wrong? Can you please explain that to me again?" And that's where I get it from, that I see my mother, God bless her. She's, 71 and looks in great shape, but she has no problem if someone chuckles at her, because she, "Excuse me, I know you chuckled at me, but can you correct me?" And I said, just, you got no sense of, like, there's no shaming. You're like, "I'm sorry. Okay, I said something wrong, and I've been in this country for, over 40 years, but can you correct me?" Yeah. And people stop and look at her like, "Wow, okay, do this, do that, say this," and she'll try, and she still might not get it right, but she tries. And that's something I tell my kids: don't, like you said, don't ever be ashamed. Work hard, and hey, I flipped burgers at Burger King when in 8th grade. Was it 8th grade? No, freshman year in high school, I flipped burgers. Awesome. And it was all right. I got no problem. I was making a paycheck, and it was one of my first jobs. And and my dad said, "Hey, that's good. You're working." I had to ride my bike to get to work and back. My dad didn't take me. He was working 2 jobs. So, but and that's coming back to what America is. It's about working hard, being proud, doing something. And you know what? I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a McDonald's or I've gone to a restaurant, and the server having that great attitude makes you feel good. I tell my wife, that person was great. So that's why I tell the kids, whatever job you do, how you touch people, you have an opportunity to make someone's life better that day just by opening the door for someone. That makes them feel good, and that's why I tell people every day you have a chance to be a hero. So again, everybody listening to this podcast, every single day you have the opportunity to touch someone's life, and hopefully people are touching your lives as well.
Yeah, there's this Walmart greeter here in Sheridan, Wyoming, and I don't know the situation. I know he's a Marine because he wears a hat, and he sees so many people every day. He don't remember me, but I always tell him, "Thanks for your service." And he's like, "Yeah, thank you, young man." But when you walk in, he's like, "Hey, young man," or "Hey, young lady," or Glad to have you at Walmart. Hey, already going to miss you. I'm already missing you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. He's so happy. And I'm actually going to visit with him and see if we can do a little iPhone interview with him. Because every time I go there, I'm like, this guy's so freaking happy to be saying hi to everybody or bye to everybody. What kind of life did this man live? I mean, what kind of life has he lived? Where has he been? What has he done? What did he
Yeah,
used to do? Why is he so freaking happy?
yeah,
Because there's a
absolutely.
lot of people in this world that ain't happy. And I mean, I'm like everybody else. I have a bad day sometimes. There ain't a week that goes by that I don't think about quitting TV. I mean, I'm like, screw this shit. It ain't
It's a
worth
tough
it.
industry. It really
Yeah,
is for people that don't understand. It's a
absolutely.
lot of pressures, and unfortunately, that's where you've seen personalities who have fallen, unfortunately, victim to bending the rules and not
Yep,
being having the ethics because it's a tough industry. And but again, I enjoy your show. I love what the message you come across. You come across sincere, and that's why I reached out to you. And I
I
just want to say,
appreciate it,
man,
man.
I appreciate you having me on here, and I hope that somehow, some way, we both have touched some of the people listening to your podcast in a positive way. And I hope that everyone continues to go out there and shooting coyotes in the face.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a perfect place to probably try to wrap this up. You've touched my life. You wouldn't believe how much you've touched my life, and you wouldn't believe how much I've thought about you and how much I watched the movie again last night. It'd been several years, and I read about you, and um, I've learned a lot tonight about how to live, and I hope everybody at home's um, listening to, and I hope your wife, comes back and listens to this podcast and hears all the cool things that we've been talking about, and um, she's my hero too. I mean, holding your family together like that,
Well, I appreciate it. That
and
means a lot, and this goes out to all the wives out there, the backbones of all the macho guys out there. I mean, our wives and our family, and even if people been divorced, at some point, hopefully, that spouse was there for you, and it's important to know that it takes a village. It really
oh
does, and
yeah,
I want, and
definitely,
again, I just want to say to everybody out there who might be suffering from PTSD, you're not alone. It takes a village, and just understand to reach out, because you deserve to be happy.
yeah, man, Will. I thank you, brother, for being on the podcast. This was probably the most. I really don't care about the podcast right now. This is one of the best conversations I've had with any American, and I know it's been healthy for me, and I'm sure it's been healthy for a lot of people at home as well.
Well, I appreciate you having me here, and hopefully, again, hope a lot of people tune in. And like I said, God bless America. God bless all our troops and everybody who's an American. And never be ashamed to be American. Fly that flag high, and just remember that flag is not made out of cloth. It's made out of the blood of patriots.
Hell yeah, man. Well, stay on the line for me just a second. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast. It's been awesome. It's been a great podcast. It gets better and better every week. And when we can have people like Will on the podcast, it's just, man, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. I mean, this has been such a great experience for me tonight, and I hope it has you guys too. With that being said, I'm Steve Kreiner, the Dog Soldier, and remember, keep your head up, move forward, stay fearless, and apologize to no one. And I don't care if you have to go to the 7-Eleven, Walmart, or a McDonald's. Find you a veteran and thank them tomorrow, or a serviceman and women, because I'm telling you what, without them, none of this is possible. Peace out, homies.